Having said that, we have seen that the phrase reason to believe no more exists under the provisions of the new law. Reason to believe was interpreted by the Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Kilminator to say that it carries in it the fact that mere change of opinion cannot be a basis for reassessment. So that bar on reassessment based on change of opinion was inherent in the phrase reason to believe. Now that that phrase is not there, I want to invite the views of Bharati on what she thinks about the new provision. Can reassessments in future be made on mere change of opinion? Can Officer X do a regular assessment and pass an order on 40 people saying you are not liable? Can Officer Y come and take the very same thing and then say that he said this, I don't agree with him, I will reassess? Can a reassessment order be passed? Can assessment be reopened on mere change of opinion? What do you think on that?
So before I answer this question, now we all know that in the earlier regime, the law has been well evolved to say that you cannot do an assessment on a mere change of opinion. Those precedents were based on the phrase of reason to believe. In Kelvinator, interestingly, there was also an observation to say that an assessing officer has a power to reassess. He does not have a power to review. Now, sir, according to me, even under the new provisions, the trigger point for reassessment or assessment under 147 is that there should be an information with the assessing officer which suggests that income is escape assessment. Now, even that information should be an information which is not already available with him, which comes to his possession later on, which gets flagged in the system or which is pointed out by the CNDG. CNDG seems to be an exception, but otherwise, it has to be an information which is not there with him earlier, or it has to be an issue which he has not looked into earlier. Even though reason to believe is absent in the new scheme, the new provisions, according to me, sir, change of opinion will still continue to be an important factor, but we may not be able to rely on the earlier precedents because of the different language employed in the new provisions. Probably a judgment similar to that of Kelvinator has to come out, laying down the law that even under the new provisions, you cannot reassess based on change of opinion or on an issue for which you have already applied your mind and decided to drop it.
So we can clearly see that Bharati has already sowed a seed of litigation under the new regime as well. We thought with Kelvinator everything was settled, but there are so many cases on how to understand Kelvinator. Now we have gone one step back and then we have undone what Kelvinator has said. Now we have a new provision and we are going to restart all these things again. But I would think that I would completely agree with Bharati because she says that the power is still only to reassess and it's not a power to review. Therefore, the concept of the officer becoming a functus officio should apply. Once he is a functus officio, then he cannot go and revisit his own order. There is some finality to what has been done. So therefore, I would agree with what Bharati is saying. So with this, we will proceed further. So this is a case study. Bharati, you want to discuss on this?
So this is something we just discussed just a few minutes back. Now let us take a scenario where original assessment has already been concluded under 143 subsection B. Then the CNJG gives a final report saying that this particular SSE is not eligible for deduction under section 80IA. The report says that SSE is not eligible for deduction, but you have erroneously given him that deduction. Now, based on the observation in the CNJG's final report, reassessment proceedings have been initiated. AO assessing officer has not independently examined this issue. Reassessment has been solely initiated, and in the reasons communicated, it says that it has been initiated based on the final report which is given by the Controller and Auditing Committee. Now, whether this reassessment is valid under the new section 148, the answer is clear yes, because the situations where the assessing officer is seen to have some information which suggests that income escaping assessment, one of the situations is that this particular issue for which he is now subjecting an SSC to reassessment should form part of the final audit report of C&AG. So, if it is forming part of final audit report of C&AG, then clearly the assessing officer has jurisdiction to subject that particular SSC to reassessment. So, all the precedents that we've had from Indian and Eastern Newspaper Society onwards, that merely based on an audit observation, you cannot initiate reassessment. The assessing officer must sit and examine the observation, come to an independent conclusion, and only on his independent conclusion he can reassess. That law which is being made, that will no longer apply in cases where there is a final audit report by the CNAG. Now, as we already discussed, the language that has been employed in the new provision suggests that this initiation based on the final audit report of CNAG will only apply in a circumstance where original assessment has already been concluded. The CNAG observes that that assessment is not done in accordance with law. Where original assessment is not done and information is not flagged in the risk management system, then even though a CNAG report may say that you should have done an assessment, the SSC seems to have claimed erroneous deductions or erroneous exemptions, that solely cannot be the ground for initiation of reassessment under the new provision.
Dealing again with this Indian and Eastern Newspaper Society, do you think that under the new law, this CAG report, etc., and the reliance on that will stop with the process of initiation of the reassessment proceeding? But for concluding the reassessment proceedings, the assessing officer has to still come up with his own reasoning and his own findings on why the income has to be reassessed or not. What do you think? So, to that extent, can I say that while Indian and Eastern Newspaper Society decision, which says that an audit objection or observation cannot be the sole basis for an assessing officer to conclude an assessment, this is what that judgment says. And I say that that may still apply to the extent that for concluding on the assessment, that will apply, but for the act of mere reopening, that will not apply. So he can reopen only based on the objection, but for concluding it, the assessing officer cannot just piggyback on the audit objection, but he has to be vigilant. Would you think that would be a
Sir, I completely agree with you on this. Only for the limited purpose of initiation, the assessing officer can rely on the final observations that have been made part of the CNAG report. But once reassessment is initiated, if he wants to make any additions, then for that he
or
has to
even to confirm that, the assessing officer, is he not still free to apply his mind and come to a contrary conclusion, saying that even though initiated, it is not liable? Can he not say CAG is wrong? It is a completely different point whether practically an officer will be doing that. But legally speaking, won't you think that he can still come to a contrary conclusion, or he can go with the same conclusion but for his good?
Once initiation is done, the SSC has an opportunity to put forward the
Yes.
submissions. So the assessing officer is duty bound to look into the SSC submissions and decide whether the submissions made by the SSC has merits and whether the CNAG's observations have to be upheld or affirmed, or whether he has enough grounds to say that the CNAG's observations are not.
So, with this case study also, it's 10,000.
Now, before we start with this case study, we will just revisit what we had seen few minutes back. That in some circumstances, the assessing officer is deemed to have information. It need not be flagged, it need not be part of a CNAG report, but he is deemed to have information which suggests that income has escaped assessment. And those circumstances are circumstances where the search is initiated or the survey is conducted. Some assets have been seized or acquisition in case of the SSC, or it belongs to some other person. Now, in these cases, he is deemed to have this information. So that flagging or CNAG report will not apply. But what is important to note is that this deeming fiction is applicable only for 3 assessment years, which is immediately preceding the relevant assessment year during which search has been conducted. So this fiction is restricted only for 3 assessment years. Now, with this background, if we can go to this case study. Now, here the search is conducted, let's say in May 2021. Assessing officer is in possession of certain documents and books of accounts of the SSC. Now, based on the documents and the books of accounts that has come into his possession, he wants to initiate reassessment for 5 years, beginning 1780. And this reassessment is only based on the information that he has in his hands consequent to the search. Now, the question is this reassessment valid for all the years? Now, as we just see, this deeming fiction is applicable only for 3 assessment years. If the assessing officer wants to go beyond 3 assessment years, then the conditions that are there in 148 need to be fulfilled, meaning thereby that information should either be flagged in the risk management system or it should be part of a C&AG final audit report. If that is not there, then beyond 3 years, he cannot initiate reassessment. He will be restricted to initiating reassessment only up to 3 years. So for 3 years, it will be valid. For 17, 18, and 18, 19, it will not be valid.
I just want to ask a question here because I see that the search was conducted on 26th May 2021. When you say 3 years, should I include 21, 22 as 1 year, or it is the preceding 3 years, so which means 18, 19, 19, 20, and 2021? Which are the 3 years we are talking
So the assessment year relevant to the year in which search is conducted is assessment year 22, 23. So we have to see 3 assessment years prior to this assessment year. So that begins from 21, 22 and
so therefore, the 3 years which we are talking about is 2019, 20, 2021, and 21. Though the search was conducted in 21, 22, there is the financial 21, 22 for which the assessment year is 22, 23. So from 20 to 23, previous 3 years means 21, 22, 20, 21, and 19. Is that right?
yes.
Okay. So for the other 2 assessment years, for which the provision will not apply. For those years, one is limitation, but if there is some way that because we are going to see what is the limitation under 149, etc. For those years, as I understand, this deeming fiction is not applicable, but if otherwise the assessing officer has enough evidence, etc., he can initiate on the strength of that. Only this deeming fiction is restricted to 3 years. It's not as if he cannot do reassessment at all, but he has to do he has to satisfy again all the requirements of Section 148.
There's few other requirements also which we will be seeing shortly along with the facts.
So with this, I want to invite my colleague Mr. Abhinav Vaidyanathan to explain to us on Section 148A and Section 149.
Yes, sir.
Abhinav, can you
Good
please
evening
take
to
that?
everyone. Yes, sir. So, sir, this new section 148A, provides for a preliminary procedure that an assessing officer will have to follow before he issues a notice under section 148. Now, the first step or the first and foremost requirement is there must be some information that is in existence which suggests that there is some income chargeable to tax that has escaped assessment. This comes to him through the risk management strategy wherein an information gets flagged. Now, once there is an information that is in existence, the assessing officer has given a discretion to conduct an inquiry with the information he has with the assessee, and this particular conducting an inquiry as such is a discretion. It's not a mandatory step that he needs to follow. Now, the next step is the assessing officer will have to provide a personal hearing to the assessee and to show cause as to why reassessment or initiation of reassessment must not be done. Now, for providing this personal hearing, he will have to take an approval from the specified authority as mentioned in section 151. Now, once the approval is granted, a personal hearing will have to be given to the assessee, and upon the conclusion of the personal hearing, the assessing officer shall serve a show cause notice to the assessee as to why initiation of reassessment need not be done under section 148. Now, this personal hearing, there is a time limit within which the personal hearing will have to be given, which is within 7 days or before 30 days from the show cause notice or the extended time as mentioned therein. And if a inquiry was conducted by the assessing officer with the assessee, he will have to mention the results of the inquiry conducted in the show cause notice. Moving forward, once the reply has been filed by the assessee, the assessing officer will have to consider the reply of the assessee and will have to pass an order by taking an approval of the specified authority. Now, while passing the order, or before issuing the notice under 148, the assessing officer will have to decide if this is a fit case to issue a notice under 148. And the timeline for that is within 1 month from the date of reply or the due date of filing the reply, he must decide to whether or not he should issue a notice under 148. Now, sir, the proviso to this particular provision specifically provides that, say, if a reassessment has been initiated after a search or seizure has been conducted, it has been specifically provided that for the purpose of search and seizure, this particular procedure under 148 need not be applicable. However, for a survey that is conducted, if a reassessment has to be initiated because of a survey that was conducted, there is no exclusion for a survey. The procedure under 148 has to be followed by the assessing officer to initiate a survey. Yes. Moving forward, section 149, the new section 149 provides for the various timelines for initiation of reassessment. Now, the general rule which says that the notice under section 148 cannot be issued beyond 3 assessment years from the end of the relevant assessment year. However, there are special cases which are given wherein notice under 148 can be issued up to 10 assessment years from the end of the relevant assessment year if 2 cumulative conditions are satisfied. Firstly, if the evidence reveals that the income chargeable to tax which has escaped assessment is more than or likely to be more than rupees 50 lakhs, and if the income is represented in the form of the asset. Therefore, if these 2 cumulative conditions are satisfied, notice can be issued up to 10 years under section 148 by the assessing officer.
You know what I understand from what you are explaining? I can understand that the time limit has been now shrunk to 3 years. Earlier it was 4 years, 6 years. Now that is shrunk to 3 years.
2 years.
The only exception to that, where they can give up to 10 years, is where the income chargeable to tax which has escaped assessment is more than 50 lakhs, based on, at least to start with, the department believes it is more than 50 lakhs, and income is represented in the form of asset. So therefore, if the amount is less than 50 lakhs, but income is represented in the form of asset, not sufficient. If it is more than 50 lakhs, but it is not represented in the form of asset, not sufficient. Both have to be cumulatively satisfied.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And sir, it is pertinent to note that first proviso to this particular provision specifically provides that for assessment years 21, 22 and prior to that and before, no notices under section 148 can be issued after 6 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. And the next proviso, which is proviso 2 to this particular provision, specifically provides that if a search is initiated or books of accounts or assets have been requisitioned on or before 31st March 2021, the notice is required to be issued under the earlier provisions of section 153A and 153C, that is, prior to 31/3/2021, the earlier provisions with respect to search being 153 and 153C will apply, and also with respect to the timelines within which these notices have to be issued, it will be the earlier provisions being 153A that would apply and not the time limits that have been provided in the new provision under section 149. Now, the interesting question is the second condition that has been mentioned in section 143(1)(b) is that the income must be represented in the form of an asset. Now, this expression as such has not been defined in the Income Tax Act. However, this particular expression has been previously used in section 153A. Now, this was inserted by Finance Act 2017, wherein the period of reassessment in cases of search was increased from 6 to 10 years. Now, the memorandum to the Finance Bill 2017 had provided that the period was increased in order to protect the interest of the revenue, where tangible evidence was found when the search was conducted, and the same is represented in the form of undisclosed investment in any asset, or any income escaped more than 50 lakhs. Now, sir, because this particular expression has not been defined in the Income Tax Act, there could be doubts that could arise, wherein, say, if the assessee has claimed a depreciation at the rate of 15%, but the department says, or the department contends that the depreciation rate that could be claimed is only 10%. Now, because of this particular difference, could the assessing officer issue notices under section 158 to say that the difference in the rate of depreciation would amount to income represented in the form of asset? The same question could arise for deductions also. And another example that we can take, that for a particular expenditure, the assessee claims it to be a revenue expenditure, but the department contends that it's a capital expenditure. So to my mind, because going by what the memorandum to the Finance Bill 2017 puts about, I feel this particular phrase would only cover those income which are undisclosed by the assessee, or if they are concealed by the assessee, and I think only those types of income would form part of the represented in the form of asset expression. However, sir, we will have to wait and watch as to how the courts interpret the same.